Who can cultivate the way of longevity? When was it that you first began to have the thought of cultivation? From what I understand, quite a number of those destined to practice the way of longevity awakened to the awareness of cultivation during childhood due to certain unusual experiences. For example, some people, as children, personally witnessed deities moving through the clouds. Some dreamed of a master from a past life, reminding them to practice. Some people's parents, in their prenatal dreams, saw an angel descend before them, and many more of those with such destiny felt, from a young age, that something in this life remained unfinished, and they sensed that only through cultivation could the answer be found. Of course, there are many other forms of initiation. Without exception, behind these initiations, there are various mysterious forces at work, with the purpose of awakening in these people the awareness of cultivation as early as possible, and setting them on their journey of seeking the way in this lifetime. In the process of seeking the way, although those ancient texts no longer record the true secrets of attainment, they nevertheless greatly cultivated spiritual thinking. This is part of the teaching that predecessors, sages, left for later seekers of the way. Yet, the predecessors could never allow the successors to obtain the answer to ascension from books, because this would violate the fundamental logic of cultivation. Namely, practice is greater than theory, reality is greater than imagination, and attainment of fruition is greater than cultivation of the mind. Therefore, these cultivators must ultimately break away from the illusory books and return to reality, to practice, and to verification through actual experience. All those who were initiated from childhood in such ways can indeed be said to be people meant for cultivation. However, this does not mean that those who are meant for cultivation will necessarily achieve success. Having the awareness of cultivation does not mean possessing the qualification for cultivation. For the distance between wanting to do something and actually accomplishing it is as vast as 10,000 miles. For a person to truly accomplish something, qualities of mind, understanding, conditions, and methods are all indispensable. So today, let us talk about what kind of people truly have the opportunity to encounter and to verify, through actual experience, the way of longevity. First, the original intention of cultivation. First of all, one must truly, from the depths of the heart, wish to cultivate the way of longevity, to become an immortal or Buddha, to attain ascension, and to be freed from the mundane world. This is the very first step, and also the most difficult one. If a person does not have a powerful and lasting conviction, they will not be able to overcome countless obstacles, nor will they reach the destination. When reality and interests can no longer persuade one to persist, it is often that unwavering belief, deep in the heart, that carries a person through and leads them to find the true path. At the beginning of the video, I said that a true cultivator goes through a stage of initiation, the purpose of which is to awaken as early as possible the cultivator's original intention for cultivation, their deep inner driving force. True cultivators are reincarnations of various beings who had already attained achievements in cultivation. By being awakened early, they can maintain a sense of detachment from the mundane world sooner. Although most cultivators are busy with family and work, no matter how busy they become, they still want to cultivate from time to time. They feel that if, in this lifetime, they do not encounter the way of longevity, their life would be incomplete, and they may even feel sorrow because of it. This deep driving force continuously pushes them to keep searching for the path. As I said before, in the human world, there are many false paths, many deceptions, and in the spirit realm, there are also countless schemes and betrayals. To see through lies and to overcome countless obstacles requires constant exploration, repeated trial and error, and continual verification of answers. Even if in the end they're utterly exhausted, they still cannot give up, nor can they forget the search for the true path. And all of these actions would be impossible without the original intention of wanting cultivation. In situations where there seems to be no way forward, these cultivators must compel themselves to rely on intuition and reflect on what true cultivation and refinement should be like. They must try as much as possible to recall the feeling of cultivation from past lives, until they once again realize the necessity of spiritual energy, that is, the genuine and pure form of energy. Only in this way do they have the chance to recognize the true way of longevity. However, the reason I placed the original intention of cultivation in the very first position is that I have found that quite a number of cultivators, even after being guided onto the path, still lack the perseverance for sustained cultivation. If cultivators who have not yet found the path are in a preschool stage, then those who have found the path are at the level of first grade in elementary school. In reality, they are still very far from the examination of ascending to the heavens. Yet, the latter often become like a deflated ball, holding the mistaken belief that once ashore it is safe, or that they can now lie flat. Perhaps because the search for the path had been too exhausting before, once they found it, they relaxed their vigilance. These cultivators should quickly come to realize that cultivation is a lifelong matter, not a momentary interest, nor a passing episode in life. The difference lies here. One is merely wanting cultivation, while the other is wanting to achieve cultivation. One remains at the level of wanting, while the other places greater emphasis on achieving. For those who wish to continue advancing in learning and to accept trials in order to ascend in level, they must promptly shift their mindset, transforming wanting cultivation into aiming to achieve cultivation. Only in this way can you reach the final destination of becoming an immortal or Buddha. Second, character and disposition. If whether one wants cultivation or not is a personal matter, a matter of individual awareness, and concerning whether one can find the path, then the quality of one's character concerns whether a cultivator can properly plan the road beneath their feet and whether they can obtain more opportunities for growth. For a student, guidance from teachers, masters, or benefactors is indispensable. For a cultivator, interaction with various beings cannot be avoided. For one who becomes an immortal or Buddha, the maintenance and the practice of the universal way is inescapable. No matter what role a cultivator is in, they must always consider their relationship with others and with all living beings. Moreover, on the path of cultivation, all cultivators are people of lack and insufficiency. Knowledge, resources, and opportunities always flow from the higher to the lower, from those who are abundant to those who are lacking. It is at this point that the importance of the quality of one's character is revealed. As the saying goes, those who uphold justice shall receive widespread allegiance, those who forsake it shall stand alone. No one likes to deal with a person of poor character. Even gangsters look down on such people. The will of the universe will never allow selfish, ruthless, and lawless beings to ascend to the heavens and take charge of the source of life and the source of growth for all living beings. So then, for a cultivator, what kind of character can be considered good? In general, just remember this underlying principle. Do not make others feel troubled or trapped. Next, I will explain this statement through several essential qualities required of a cultivator. The first essential quality is sincerity, a sincerity in which words and actions are consistent. If a person shows a frivolous attitude while seeking the way, then in all likelihood this person is not truly intent on cultivation, and in the end will certainly be unable to withstand the trials. let alone the long and enduring ones. For those whose sincerity is insufficient, offering them help is nothing but a waste of time, energy, and resources. Some may object, saying, shouldn't a master be patient in teaching and nurturing? But in reality, there are hundreds of millions of cultivators. If one had to teach each individually, one would collapse from exhaustion long ago. With time, energy, and resources being limited, it is natural to guide as much as possible only those who are already prepared. Therefore, if you truly have sincerity, remember to express it through words and actions consistently. Do not make the master guess. There is not so much time available to try to understand you. The second essential quality is loyalty and righteousness. Betrayal and unfaithfulness are forever taboos in any relationship, for they mean that all the effort and devotion a master has given are wasted. This is not only disrespect toward the master, but also disregard toward the way itself. For example, if today you are taught the skills of cultivation, and tomorrow you establish your own sect, unwilling to be bound by rules, and even claim that you do so out of great compassion to save all beings, then you are not only disregarding the cosmic rules of cultivation tests, but also slandering them by saying, these so-called rules are merely selfish acts of a master who does not wish to share. Such betrayal also places the master in unrighteousness, for the master entrusted important matters to one unworthy. From the standpoint of the way, the master bears the fault of misjudgment and must also shoulder the subsequent karmic losses and risks that result. Therefore, reasoning backward from outcomes to execution, from the very beginning, a master must observe whether a seeker of the way shows any sign of disloyal behavior, whether intentional or unintentional. The third essential quality is independence. As the saying goes, a true friendship is one that allows for comfort and ease without dependency. And among cultivators, relationships ought to be just as simple yet refreshing. Each person is an independent individual, and each needs their own space for cultivation. No one likes to be repeatedly disturbed, constantly asked for things, emotionally or morally coerced or clung to. This sounds reasonable, doesn't it? Yet, in fact, many cultivators fail to achieve it. Many of them, when faced with even small problems and difficulties, are unwilling to think and overcome independently, and instead glorify it as a so-called spirit of insatiable curiosity. The fourth essential quality is that a cultivator must value rules and covenants, must keep their word, and must bring things to a proper conclusion. As mentioned earlier, for seekers of the way in lower positions to receive the devotion of energy and resources from those in higher abundance, and for all living beings to have fair and just opportunities for growth, seekers of the way must abide by the existing rules of cultivation and uphold the covenants of cultivation. Without rules, nothing can be properly formed. Human order is like this, and the order of the universe is the same. For example, why are certain deities specifically appointed to bring forth thunder and rain? And why is it not that anyone can simply run to the heavens and cause rainfall? Because without the constraints of overarching rules, there would inevitably be chaos and disaster. Third, a great love. In my previous videos, I did not mention this concept. The reason is that whether or not to act with compassion and save others is entirely the personal choice of the cultivator. However, I have found that many people are somewhat too indifferent. Cultivators must ultimately come to comprehend the intention of the will of the universe. Only in this way can they act in accordance with it and eventually obtain the opportunity for ascension. And the will of the universe, in the end, is love for all living beings. Not a small love, but a great love. What is great love? To teach is love, and to punish is also love. To sacrifice oneself to save others is love, and to respect the destiny of others is also love. Both are choices made with consideration for all living beings. Whether one chooses compassion or chooses severity, both are expressions of great love. What is truly to be feared is when a cultivator makes no reflection, no choice, and simply maintains an attitude of detachment, as if it has nothing to do with them. For the will of the universe contains within it two different inclinations of love, and the ones who ultimately realize and manifest either form of this love are the living beings who make the choice. Choice signifies creation and transformation, not merely empty tears of compassion. Looking back at history, those who succeeded in becoming immortals or Buddhas mostly left an impression of being filled with compassion. For only such people embody the morality of balancing by curbing excess and fostering lack, and thus possess the qualification to become divine. Therefore, I believe that great love should be regarded as one of the standards by which cultivators evaluate and realize themselves, which is why I have brought it up to discuss separately this time. Fourth, the core of humility. There's a mountain higher than another. No matter how intelligent a person is, they can never surpass the will of the universe itself. Many truths follow the principle that the great way is simple. The true transmission may be contained in just a single phrase, which requires you to savor it repeatedly in the actual process of cultivation and refinement. The very same truth, when you enter a different stage of cultivation, will have its preconditions change along with you. When you read it again, you will find its meaning has become different. Yet, many people are outwitted by their own cleverness. They either pursue complex and obscure concepts, or they think they already understand everything, while neglecting the fact that practice is the very foundation of learning knowledge. In the end, they cannot even grasp the deep meaning of the most basic phrase, or even just a few words. Therefore, only those who are humble can learn true knowledge and true wisdom. Moreover, the road to becoming an immortal or Buddha is extremely severe. You cannot possibly know in what manner the will of the universe will test you, or how it will set questions upon your weaknesses and blind spots. The only way is to remain humble and constantly reflect upon yourself. A humble person is able at all times to look up to and revere the will of the universe, and through putting themselves in another's place, continually observe their own shortcomings, recognize their own smallness, and realize how far there is still to go. Thus, by applying themselves diligently each day, such a person can truly make progress. In contrast, the arrogant and conceited often believe that their own intelligence and talent are already sufficient to comprehend the truth. Such people, in the future, are very likely to persist stubbornly in the wrong direction, ultimately bringing disaster to all living beings. Therefore, most of the time, the way of longevity will first filter out those conceited cultivators. Furthermore, only those who are humble can pass the test of greed, anger, and ignorance. A humble person will always place themselves in the position of a disciple. They will not give rise to greed or resentment because of changes in their own status, the amount of resources they possess, or the gains and losses of opportunities. Knowing that all gains and losses come from their own creation and transformation, and trusting that under the will of the universe all living beings are equal, they will not lose their way. Finally, only those who are humble can face the shortcomings of their current stage with practicality and resolve present difficulties step by step. Otherwise, they will spend their days foolishly indulging in the happiness of cultivation, becoming oversized infants on the path of cultivation. Fifth, having action power. The first four can be said to belong to the spiritual aspect of cultivation, namely the part of cultivating the mind. Yet, the mind is changeable. One may say they have understood, but whether they can truly carry it out and not have their resolve altered by the challenges of reality is the most difficult part. Therefore, taking action to realize it is the key test for a cultivator. So-called action power does not only mean having the psychological courage to act, but also requires possessing the qualities for action, such as money, time, independence, and the ability to learn. To put it plainly, it is through the actual conditions you have realized in reality that one can judge your current ability to practice cultivation. It is like how you cannot simply boast endlessly on a resume, while in actual work, your performance is utterly poor. In the way of longevity, what ultimately matters is still your capability to carry it out. I have previously spoken about the necessity of having strong economic survival ability, but many people did not understand what I meant and often misunderstood me. Today, I will give a few examples, and then everyone will know. The first type of cultivator, although having a decent educational background, does not possess particularly outstanding job skills, and coupled with the unfavorable employment environment, works from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week with only 1 day off. In a month, they can barely spare 1 or 2 days to go out for cultivation. Their cultivation can only reach this extent. They cannot free themselves to do more, and even have little time to summarize and learn from their experiences. If they do not work, they have no income. If they resign, they may not find a better job. How should you choose in such a case? The second type of cultivator has a family and children to support. Some may not have the burden of mortgage or car loans, yet their income and expenses must still be discussed with family members. Some need to spend holidays accompanying their family. Some are even constrained by their partner, who does not agree to their cultivation. How will you balance family and cultivation? The third type of cultivator can be anyone. Those who have experienced the goodness of cultivation often wish to guide their own family as much as possible, because cultivators can see more clearly the meaningless suffering of the mundane world. Even if their family members are destined not to ascend in this lifetime, being able to seize the chance to initiate, enlighten, or change fate is already a blessing. At such times, however, whether one can take care of one's own cultivation while also attending to one's family becomes a true challenge. All of these still remain only within the scope of cultivating oneself well. If you cannot even cultivate yourself properly, how can you speak of helping others? Many people have become accustomed to cultivating the mind alone without any real expenses, and do not realize that true cultivation requires economic support. For a cultivator to make just one trip, there are costs for airfare, car rental, fuel, food, lodging, and even energy consumption. Moreover, many people only have free time during holidays, and the costs of traveling during holidays are multiplied several times over. Therefore, without certain practical conditions, cultivation is very difficult. Some young people write letters saying that they can live frugally and practice cultivation as much as possible. But I must pour cold water on this. The kind of suffering least necessary in cultivation is the suffering of food, clothing, shelter, and daily life, because most ordinary people also live this way. If merely enduring this could lead to achieving cultivation, then the vast majority of people would succeed. Therefore, physical hardship is not the main scope of the tests of cultivation. The true suffering, the true tests, begin after you decide to follow the way of longevity, how you resolve real-life predicaments, how you face dilemmas, whether you can endure long-term dedication, whether you can realize your goals, and whether you can withstand the loneliness of being misunderstood. These are the matters that truly count. The will of the universe, by observing your choices and your ability to handle predicaments, judges your determination to cultivate and whether you can truly put into practice the 4 wishes mentioned earlier. Therefore, do not blame me for setting requirements for guidance that are too high, because I have seen far too many people who claimed to be very sincere and very eager for cultivation, yet in the end could not endure even a little hardship, and when faced with real predicaments, resorted only to the ostrich tactic of avoidance. This shows that their wish for cultivation was not firm enough. That is why I often emphasize, unless in this lifetime you wish for nothing other than to cultivate the way of longevity, or unless from childhood you were initiated to cultivate the way of longevity, you should not lightly attempt this path. This is Celestial Feed. See you in the next episode.